A few years ago, a book came out, The Monuments Men, which is just tremendous. And then they decided to make it into a movie, which also is tremendous. And I'm really torn on this because, FDR didn't lift a finger to save millions of Jews or even slow it down. But we did do a remarkable thing with the art that was lost, not only from the Jews, but from all over Europe. And that's where the Monuments Men come in. And it tells a story of the America that I always have believed that we are, and that I always hope that we are. A country that does the right thing because it's right, not because we benefit out of it. The guy who wrote the story, The Monuments Men, is Robert Etzel, and he is with us now. How are you, Robert?
Doing great, thanks.
So you are you're a historian that. How did you stumble on this?
I had moved to Florence in 1996. I'd sold my business and was looking for something that was more meaningful. I'd had a successful business career, and my son was 2 years old. I wasn't spending the kind of time with him I wanted to. So I needed to create just a break to go learn about some new things, and traveled around Europe and settled in Florence and started studying art and architecture. And one day I asked this question just out of curiosity. If Europe was so beat up by the war, 65 million lives lost, how did so many of the works of art survive, and who were the people that saved them? And I didn't know what the answer was. I wasn't embarrassed about that, but I was hugely embarrassed. It never occurred to me to ask. And I started asking people that lived there, and they all said, "Oh, that's a great question. What's the answer?" And I said, "I don't know. You live here. You ought to know." So World War II is the most documented, photographed event in history, and you'd figure there'd be books of photographs about this period. There weren't, which is why my first book, Rescuing Da Vinci, was a photographic telling. But then I really realized what we were lacking was this narrative telling through these men and women's letters home during the war, where they described their feelings. What was it like being a middle-aged guy walking away from having life made, not knowing whether you're ever going to see your small kid again, and walking into salt mines and finding thousands of stolen works of art? What was that like?
So some of these guys are still alive.
Yeah, there's still 6 living, five men and 1 woman who's British. She's the oldest, 97. The youngest is 88.
Were any of these guys portrayed in the movie?
Yeah, Harry Ettlinger, our youngest, 88 years young, as he likes to say, who is really the great American success story. Harry Ettlinger is the last Jew to have a bar mitzvah in Karlsruhe, Germany, at 13 years old, right before Kristallnacht. His family realizes, we got to get out. They were so lucky to make it to the States. They went to New Jersey. Harry went to school from 13 to 18, held down 2 jobs while he's going to school. At 18, is drafted into the United States Army, goes to boot camp. They hear his very strong German accent. They say, "Ettlinger, are you an American?" And he says, "No, sir, I'm a German Jew." And so they naturalize him right there. And he puts on a uniform and goes back to be in the replacement troops for Battle of the Bulge, fighting for this new country against the country he came from. I mean, where else does this happen?
Amazing.
And he ends up being converted into a monuments man because he's a native German speaker, and they need those linguistic skills.
So when you found the story because it really is a heroic story, and I got into the car, and I think I Facebooked right out of the movie theater that just said, this tells the story of who we really are. No other country would do this. No other country was doing this. Germany was stealing them and destroying them. The Soviets were stealing them. We were finding them and replacing them.
It's a high water mark for our country. It's something that we haven't been able to do since. I think General Eisenhower, I was asked one time at one of the first presentations, I give presentations all over the country, and I did one in Washington, and you've never seen a more interesting look on people's face than when you have a bunch of former OSS agents or Secret Service, or I should say intelligence people, not know anything about a story involving World War II, and they didn't know. And Susan Eisenhower, General Eisenhower's granddaughter, was there. I'd not met her. I didn't know who she was. And someone asked me, "Why do you think General Eisenhower did this?" And I shrugged my shoulders and I said, because I think he was an incredibly decent human being, and he thought it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And Susan Eisenhower came up to me and said, "I think you're right. I think that," and she didn't know about this either. So not only do we find these things, these men and women risk their lives during combat. The men do, 2 of whom are killed, 1 American and 1 British fellow, in the process of doing their job. And ultimately they find some 5 million objects looted by the Nazis, 4 million looted, 1 million that belonged to German museums, return the 4 million objects to the countries from which they're taken, paintings, church bells, stained glass drawings, sculpture, and then the American Army is custodian for these million objects belonging to German museums and private collectors that, despite all the horrific things that they see, and they've lost 2 buddies, they're custodians of these things, not just as Americans, but as citizens of the world, because it's the right thing to do. It's a remarkable, uplifting story about World War II, and I think one that's really resonating with people.
The story of Kate Blanchett, who this woman that Kate Blanchett plays, and Matt Damon, really a remarkable story as it's portrayed in the movie. How accurate is that?
I think that part of the film is very accurate. It's a wonderful dynamic. Kate Blanchett, this French curator working at a small museum, Jeu de Paume, for 4 years under the instruction of her boss, as just keeping the lights on. But this is the location where all the stolen works of art from France are coming through, being photographed, inventoried, and taken to the Reich. They know that she's working there, but what they don't know is she understands German, and she's making secret notes of the works of art that are coming through, digging through trash cans to find shipping manifests and inventories.
Do her notes still exist?
Yes, they do. They're at the Louvre Archive, and we've spent a lot of time studying them. She is, when the Americans liberate Paris, one of the monument's men, Jim Rorimer, who will go on to be the director of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York after the war, arrives and is introduced to her and encouraged to talk to her because he's told she knows lots of things. At the beginning, he doesn't believe it. And as the months pass, he realizes that she does, and he says, well, just give it to me. Well, she doesn't know who to trust because there's such a collaboration problem in France. She doesn't trust French. She doesn't trust the Americans. So there's this courtship of sorts that goes on for some 5 or 6 months with him trying to earn her trust, and ultimately she turns over this information. She's in some quarters vilified in France for doing this as being unpatriotic, but her loyalty were to the works of art. And so Rorimer goes to this castle in Neuschwanstein, depicted on this front cover photo of the book, standing there with those other 3 soldiers, and finds some 21,000 stolen paintings and pieces of furniture from collectors in France.
So let me show the cover of the book here. And it is it's 4 guys, and they're standing with some paintings.
Yep.
And one of them, what is this painting here?
That's a painting by a French painter named Largillier, and they're just carrying down these works. I mean, this is a 1945 photo op, and you see Rorimer standing there on the steps with a notepad in his hand. But they also, in addition to these 21,000 works of art, found the key documents, some 39 brown leather-covered albums that documented the Nazis' looting, and they were the chief documents that were used during the portion of the Nuremberg trials for the prosecution of theft and destruction of cultural property. Roosevelt thought they were there, urged Rorimer to get there quickly out of fear that the Nazis would destroy it, and everyone thought until 6 years ago that these 39 were the only 39, but we've since found 4 more of these albums, donated 3 of them to the National Archives, and of course 1 we've brought, and it's
now this album was made for Hitler because he was making the world's greatest art collection.
He was going to build a museum in his hometown called the Fuhrer Museum. The formal name was Gemäldegalerie Gallery Linz. And these albums were submitted to him with photographs of the works of art that had been stolen, and he would flip through them like mail order catalogs, deciding which works he wanted to have in his collection. So in the albums, not only do you see the photographs, but you see this really pernicious aspect of the Nazis, these inventory codes that show each family. So you have Rothschild as R, and the number next to it is the object number stolen from the Rothschilds. R467 would be the 467th item stolen. That's exactly it. So David Weil, Seligman, Wildenstein, these are the families.
So R is Rothschild, so the number after it, 1007.
That'd be the 1007th object stolen from the Rothschilds. And I've seen numbers go into the 6,000s, and you have to keep in mind, sometimes the coin collections that might have 10,000 coins, that counted as one object.
Oh, my gosh. So this is the, and I'll open it if you're watching on television. I don't know if you can get up, but this is the, it's disturbing to have a swastika on the desk, but...
Yeah, what you see there is one of these beautiful black and white photographs of one of the works of art that went through the Jeu de Paume where Roosevelt worked. And you see down on the bottom right-hand side the inventory number. It's a Rothschild.
437.
437th painting stolen from the Rothschilds.
And when he's the guy who was doing this, who they find later up in the mountains, just pretending to be, I was just a soldier in the war. Accurate?
Yes, that scene is predominantly accurate. One of the monuments officers, a great character played by Bill Murray, his real life character is Robert Posey, develops a toothache, and it's so severe they've got to go see, God forbid, a German dentist. The war's still going on. In the process of seeing this dentist, he ends up being a chatty Cathy, and he talks and talks and talks, and he asks what Posey's doing, and Posey says, we're trying to find works of art that have been stolen. And he says, well, you should talk to my son-in-law. I think he knows a lot about that. Innocently trying to do good. Drives him up to his son-in-law's chalet, and what he doesn't know is that his son-in-law does know a lot about it because he worked for the SS and was one of the people in Paris looting these things. So that's where they get the key information about where the salt mine was.
Was it accurate when they pull up each... one of the guys knows that's a Rothschild. Yeah. That's a Rothschild.
That part's not. Instead of having the actual works of art, he had photographs of these things, but it didn't take
this,
and it didn't take long in interrogating him to realize what he knew. And the guy quickly turned and said, "I'll tell you everything you want to know. I just want a free pass." And the monumentsman said, "We're not authorized to do that. You tell us what you know, and then we'll see." So they gathered this information and didn't give him a free pass, and they got the key location where so many of these things were, the key salt mine in Al Tausay, which is the last one that figures in the film.
So here's where I was so torn. Every time I think of this story, I'm torn. Because I think it shows that we are remarkable people. We are just a remarkable nation. I don't think I can think of any other time in world history where this happens. You know, we were the conquerors. We could have gone over there and said, we saved your butt because we are spending our treasure and our blood. We're just taking this stuff. We could have, and we didn't, which speaks volumes about the United States of America. At the same time, as the art is being taken, and it's being taken from many of the people it's being taken from are Jews. The Jews are being killed, rounded up on trains and gassed. We know what Auschwitz is. We have the aerial photography. We don't bomb the train tracks. FDR at one point says, we're not here to save the Jews. We're here to stop Hitler. He also, in his own writings, and he's quoted as saying, while I don't agree with how Hitler is handling it, the Jews brought it upon themselves. So there's this real callousness on that. At the same time, there seems to be this love for the art. We've got to preserve the art. And I love the movie. But I got out of my car and I thought, you son of a bitch. Where was anyone saying, how about saving the people who owned the art?
Well, the monuments men, the thing is, I think what we were doing was certainly trying to protect not only these works of art, but they're so representative. These Holocausts, lowercase h, capital H, begin with the humiliation part, the incarceration of people, but leaving them alive to watch the things that define who they are as a civilization be stolen and destroyed. And that's what Hitler's saying. We're not only going to exterminate you, we're going to erase you from the face of the earth. So there's this humiliation period that involves the theft of the cultural treasures. The rescuing of people is hugely important, but obviously saving the things that define who they are, Torahs, religious objects, the libraries that were targeted by the Nazis that were stolen. And in one of the more perverse aspects of the story, some of these libraries and Torah scrolls survive, not because Hitler felt any softness in his heart, but because he's going to build these racial institutes to demonstrate how these people are subhuman and use these objects in the museums. So they preserve them for this worst of worst reasons. So it's a real challenge for the monuments officers because they're going through some of these concentration camps and they've lost buddies. They're seeing the horrors of war, and yet they rise above these things to realize it's not right to go in and shoot bullet holes through works of art as a way of expressing our anger. We're custodians. We have a job to do. And one of the more touching stories I tell, when one of the concentration camps is liberated, one of the American rabbi chaplains shows up and sees one of the monuments men, Walker Hancock, character played by John Goodman, and says, It's so bad you can't believe it. They haven't had a religious service in years. I wish I had some religious object. And Walker Hancock said, I have a Torah scroll here that we found this morning at an SS office. Take it and use it. And he takes it to this camp and then comes back afterwards and describes how people reached out crying at the mere sight of it. Everyone was reaching to just touch it. And you really see the power of the importance of these objects, not as objects, but really defining who people are.
Holy cow. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we come back, because you're trying to get, these guys are still alive, some of them are still alive, and you're trying to get medals issued for them.
We want a Congressional Gold Medal, and we want it quickly.
Yeah, and I think that is a worthy thing to do. We'll come back in just a second.
Found by Jim Rorimer at the Castle of Neuschwanstein, working off Rose Valland's information, and then 3 others that we found and we've already donated. So we've had this album for the last 4 years, and we use it to bring visibility to it. And each time we do this, someone calls and says, I think I have one of those things. So with the Monuments Men Foundation, which I founded in 2007, which is a not-for-profit entity, we're completing the mission of the Monuments Men. The original goal was raise worldwide awareness. The film's helping us accomplish that. Now there are going to be hundreds of millions of people around the world. One story I think you'll be interested in, the Monuments Men book's been translated in 34 languages. When it was translated into Chinese, I contacted our publisher there and said, why in the world are you all interested in this? And they said, because Chinese people can't believe you gave it all back.
That's amazing.
Now, what a wonderful thing for people to learn about Americans in that context.
Okay, so if they happen to have something that they think...
Give the foundation a call, 1-866 World War II Art, WWII Art. We don't charge anybody anything. If they send us a digital photograph or send us an email, we'll follow up, or they can call. We have researchers that answer the phone. Our focus is bringing honor on the veterans, recognize them, thank them for their service, and in the final twilight years of their life, or their families, identify these things and get them back where they belong.
Robert, you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then the Congressional Gold Medal. That's the other thing.
What an honor to be able to talk to Robert Edsel. I mean, he is a guy who the world didn't know about this. One of the greatest stories in American history. One of the greatest stories in World War history.
Really
no country has
cool.
ever done this before. And we can help get their medals by going to monumentsmenfoundation.org, monumentsmenfoundation.org. And there's a place where you can put a zip code in, your zip code, and it will automatically send something to your congressman or your senator that says, give these guys a medal. Before they die, let's not do this. Let's not wait. Before they die, let's honor these guys. And if you haven't seen The Monuments Men or read it, please do. It is truly a remarkable movie.
6 are still alive?
Yeah, 6 are still alive.
How many were there?
I don't know. I guess we should have asked him.
Looks like they focused on 6 or 8 in the movie.
Yeah,
right?
but I had this Rescuing Da Vinci. I had this when I was in New York when it first came out. I had this on my coffee table in my office for the longest time because I just thought it was just a great story. I just love the fact. And when you see look at this. In the book, you see here's the salt mines where they found them, and they found billions of dollars worth of gold and everything, and it just and the movie really shows it to where they are stumbling in there like what at one point the Matt Damon character is like what's in this? He's like I don't know, I think it just says storeroom, and they're down in a mine and they open up and turn the lights on, and it's one of those click, 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 and it's all gold and boxes of art.
Wow.
Can you imagine the temptation?
Wow.
I mean,
oh my gosh.
Look, even there had to be moments where these guys were like, look, I know we're doing a good thing. Can't we just set aside 1 or 2 of these things for ourselves? I mean, there had to be that temptation. And the fact that they didn't fall to that is pretty amazing. It shows what, great people they were.
And I just think what Robert has done is remarkable because here is a movie, and it's made $100 million worldwide, and here's a movie that shows us in a good light, shows us who we really are.
And with big time, it's not some like minor thing. I mean, big time Hollywood actors did it too. I mean,
oh no, Kate Blanchett is in this, and she's fantastic. John
Goodman,
Goodman,
Clooney, you got Damon.
George Clooney.
I mean, this is a big time cast. And
at the very beginning, it's Clooney and Damon, and it feels a little like Ocean's 11. It's like Clooney's coming to Damon, and he's like, "Look, I need your help on something." And so it's a little like that, but Bill Murray is in
too.
it.
Yeah.
Jeez,
I got to see this movie.
I'm surprised you didn't see it.
I really wanted to when it came out, but it was just one of those that my wife is not big on the historical films, so it's like we go out, saw some awful movie with freaking Kevin Costner, and it was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
Too bossy.
What was it?
Wife is too bossy.
The wife is too bossy. I've been telling her that.
We've banned that word
beat her down.
in this program.